Greetings and salutations and welcome once again back into the record room. And on this week's episode, I'm going to do something that I probably do more than any other thing when it comes to record collecting, and that is showing off some new old releases. What I mean by new old releases is old releases that are new into my collection. Fairly straightforward when you think about it, but you know, in today's climate, modern record collecting, tons of reissues out there, tons and tons of reissues out there, and it's great that some of these albums are now available to buy relatively easily, relatively cheaply, and they're not too hard to find. But modern vinyl, to me, just doesn't sound the same. And then that's no knock on modern vinyl at all. I appreciate all the plants out there and the pressings that, you know, labels are offering. It's great to have this stuff back on vinyl, but there is nothing that can beat an OG pressing. Doesn't have to necessarily be an original pressing, but just a pressing from around the time the record came out. That way, you know, there'll kind of be no digital foolery involved. And you know, there are tons of records in my collection, as I'm sure are in your collections as well, that you've purchased, you've seen in a shop for like $10, $15, $20, and it's been a reissue and you've bought it home and it's been great, you've listened to it and you've really enjoyed it, but it's a reissue. And you think to yourself, well, you know, maybe I could track down an original. Maybe it wouldn't be that expensive. And kind of that's what I've been doing quite a lot of lately when it comes to record collecting. I've been tracking down some of the original versions or original reissues of records that I know and love. And I'm going to show you a few of them here because I'm quite happy with the ones I actually have here. This isn't 4 records I found like that. I didn't find them in one place. I didn't find them in one shop. I found them all over, but I've kind of been amassing original copies, original reissues of the albums I love. And I thought I'd show you guys some of the ones that I'm very happy to have added to the collection recently. And this does mean that some of my reissues will be hitting Discogs or being traded in, things like that. So I can basically carry on the hunt for more original pressings. And first up is an OG reissue of Led Zeppelin 2. Now, I can't afford the first press of Led Zeppelin 2. It's a very expensive record. But this is a really, really nice reissue on the Plum Atlantic label. And this one also has... let me get this out here. This one also has the Killing Floor. Yeah, this one actually has the Killing Floor credit. So I don't know if you're going to be able to see it there. I'll try and get it as close as possible. But essentially, the Led Zeppelin song, the Lemon Song, is based on an old blues number called the Killing Floor, I believe. And on certain issues of the record, the label was credited as either Lemon Song or Killing Floor. And the version I have here, it says Lemon Song in the jacket, but it says Killing Floor on the label. Now, it's not an amazing kind of discovery or find to get a copy like that. It's just nice to have, though. This is a nice copy. The jacket is obviously, it's got some... I don't want to say it's got some issues, it's just worn. But then, you know, the record is 50 years old, so I'm pretty sure I would have been worn too. But as you can see here, track 3 on side 1 is credited as the Lemon Song in the jacket, but on the sleeve it is credited to Killing Floor. I don't know if that's showing out there, but you can see pictures online. And as you might be able to tell, this is actually a pretty nice, clean copy of the record. Now, obviously, the prize that everybody wants when it comes to a Led Zeppelin 2 is a Robert Ludwig cut. But finding one of those is nigh on impossible these days. And if you do find one, it's usually beat to all hell. And over here in the UK, we didn't have that pressing. So chances of me walking into a record store and finding it are just non-existent at this stage. But this is a nice, I think this might be, I want to say a 3rd or 4th pressing. maybe something like that. But I mean, I love the Atlantic Plum label. I just do. It's nice. It's got that authenticity about it. And you know, Led Zeppelin, one of my favorite bands. I love those. I love the reissues I have. In fact, they're all here. I pretty much have every Led Zeppelin album as a reissue, bar I think Led Zeppelin 4, which is an older reissue. From the time period. So going back and tracking down some of these records is definitely something I'm interested in, and scratching off Led Zeppelin 2 was an absolute no-brainer, as was tracking down an original-ish issue of the Rolling Stones Sticky Fingers. Now, I'll be honest, when I was a younger person, I was never much of a Rolling Stones fan, never much of a Beatles fan either, if I'm honest. But as I've grown older, I've really learned to appreciate how great the Rolling Stones are, and the Beatles as well, but the Rolling Stones really are quite special. And obviously everybody knows this cover because it has a zipper on it, and the reissues, they don't have the zipper, it's just a picture of the sleeve. So this, I believe this is a 1971 pressing. Trying to track down which one of this on Discogs it actually is was quite the task, so I don't actually know. It's a reissue according to the label, but it could have just been like a third or fourth pressing, so not necessarily a reissue, but just an issue of the record. But as you can see, I mean, hopefully it's showing up. The vinyl itself is in really great shape. You know, a few scratches here and there, but once it's been run through the ultrasonic and, you know, given time, I've listened to this album already like 3 or 4 times, and just hearing, you know, Brown Sugar, Wild Horses, Can't You Hear Me Knocking, like, just unbelievable. There's kind of a dirt and a grit to some of these LPs that you just don't get with a modern version, because they're kind of cleaned up to sound good digitally. And I get that, you know, I do get that. But for me, it's more about I want the authenticity. And what's cool about this version is the little, what do you call this? The little opening at the belt. This is usually torn off, you know, through wear and tear over the years, but this one is actually still intact. It's a little bit, you know, damaged, but it's still there. It's still holding on. The zipper does work. I don't want to pull it too hard, but it does work. It does unfasten. And the sleeve, as some of you may know, the sleeve opens at the top and the bottom. And if you look inside, I mean, you're not going to be able to see it from here, but go online and take a look at this if you want. It's basically the guy's underpants, if you want to see that. Famous Andy Warhol cover. Beginning it with the zip, with the fastener kind of still there. It was something I wanted, you know, it wasn't overly expensive. I did trade some stuff in to be able to get this, but it's just, you know, it's a classic album that belongs in, I'd say it belongs in 90% of the record collections in the world. It's one of those really great albums that you probably know more songs on it than you realize. And tracking down an original-ish copy for, you know, not crazy money is something I'm always going to be on the lookout for. So I love that record. I've grown to appreciate it even more recently from listening to it as it was meant to be listened to. So I'll be on the hunt for some more Stones stuff, especially some of the 70s era stuff. That's my favorite period of the Stones. You know, I do like the 60s original stuff, but something about the 70s Stones that really kind of gets the blood pumping. And when we talk about getting the blood pumping, well, this album, I never had this on vinyl before. I believe I may have had a CD back in the day, but it's an album I'm super familiar with from listening to it online, Spotify, Apple Music, wherever. But the price on this album just kept kind of like creeping up and creeping up and creeping up. And I'm almost positive there hasn't been a reissue of this, certainly in recent memory, but it's the Ozzy Osbourne Randy Rhoads Tribute LP. I have been on the hunt for this record for such a long time, and not necessarily to get the free poster inside. However, This copy does have the poster, which I was very, very pleased. But just getting a good, clean copy of this record, it was kind of, it's almost like, I don't want to say it was kismet or anything like that, but the weird thing is, like 2 days before I came across this record, I was surfing, I think it was Amazon Prime TV one night, and a documentary about Randy Rhoads popped up, and I was like, oh, I don't think I've seen that. And, you know, it wasn't the greatest doc in the world, but it covered enough for me to kind of get a better grip on how great Randy really was. And that kind of lit a fire under me where I was like, oh man, I really need to track down that Ozzy album, the tribute to Randy Rhoads. And then I went into a secondhand record store I go to sometimes. It's a bit of a drive away from me, so I don't go that often, but there it was. It was just sitting there, and the guy at the counter actually said to me, yeah, and it actually does have the poster. Now, I'm not going to do anything with this poster. That it's going to stay in its sleeve, but the fact that it comes with the original poster and it's in great shape as well, someone has really cared for this. You know, I love it. I look at my record collection as an archive sometimes, and I hope that someday down the line my daughter or somebody will get that, and then one day they'll pull out that poster and be like, wow, the same way that I am. But this is probably top 5, maybe the greatest heavy metal rock and roll live album ever. Just the sound quality is fantastic. Obviously Randy is killer. You've also got Rudy Sarzo on there as well, and oh man, I'm blanking on the drummer's name, but he terrifies me looking at him. Anyway, the record comes with printed inner sleeves. I believe this originally came out in 1987. Yeah, and it's just, it's great. Tribute, Ozzy Osbourne. This is record 2 of a 2 record set. As you can see there on the nice 80s Epic label. And yeah, it's in fantastic shape. Whoever had this before me has really, really cared for this record, looked after it. And it's been played, you know, it's been played and enjoyed, but it is in really, really good shape. I love this picture of Randy's old business card there. I used to give music lessons at his mum's music school, but there you go. That's record 1. Let me show you the other side as well. I mean, and when it comes to Ozzy, I mean, I don't think I have every Ozzy solo album. I want to say that I've probably got maybe 6 or 7. Maybe I do have every Ozzy. No, I'm missing The Ultimate Sin. That's one album I am on the lookout for, and I know that I will come across it. But I mean, the track list on this album is just, as far as, like, you know, being an Ozzy fan and being a Sabbath fan as well, it starts off with I Don't Know, Crazy Train, Believer, Mr. Crowley, Flying High Again, Revelation, Steal Away, Suicide Solution, Iron Man, Children of the Grave, Paranoid, Goodbye to Romance, which I know is like a kind of cheesy ballad, but I love that song. No Bone Movies, and D, which is a Randy Rhoads outtake. Just flawless, just absolutely flawless. If you haven't heard this record and you're a fan of Ozzy or Randy or just, you know, good rock and roll, go and listen to the Ozzy Osbourne tribute album to Randy Rhoads. You know, I didn't pay a fantastic amount for this record. Again, I traded some stuff in. I can't remember the exact price of it, but just having it is really nice. The price has been creeping up there. If you want to get it with a poster, I think it might cost you anywhere between like 50, 60 pounds, something like that. And even at that price, I don't think it's overpriced, because what's a modern reissue these? I think modern records in HMV these days, like a new release, like a new Taylor Swift or something, is like 35, 40 pounds, maybe more. I genuinely don't know, because I don't really buy modern records, and I especially don't buy them from HMV. But for a reissue that sounds great, it's from a time when they knew how to make records, and it's in great shape. And you know, I'm over the moon to have it, and that's a record that wasn't in my collection, and now it is, and I'm super happy. But I'm going to round out this episode with a record that is in my collection, or has been in my collection, and has been in my collection over the years more than once or twice. I'm not somebody that sold their original record collection. A lot of my original records were, I don't want to say abandoned, but let's just say I lost a lot of my original records decades ago. And obviously I've been amassing them ever since. And I do still have some of my original records, but nowhere near the collection I once had. But one record that has never really been out of my collection for a number of reasons is Joy Division's Unknown Pleasures. Now, everybody I'm sure is well aware of Joy Division and Ian Curtis, what happened, the formation of New Order. And I don't need to tell you the history of Joy Division, but late 70s, early Manchester. I don't know what you class them as. Some people call them post-punk, no-wave, indie, alternative, pop, whatever you call it. I love Joy Division. I love Joy Division. I don't think there's a Duff Joy Division song track I've ever heard. I remember the first time I heard Love Will Tear Us Apart, and I couldn't believe it. This was a reissue that was much, much, much later. Than Joy Division. I mean, New Order were massive. I can't even remember when I first heard it. I might have even heard it on the radio. And I just remember thinking, wow, that guy's voice is something else. Like, what is this? And I learned about Joy Division. And, you know, since my teens, I've had a copy of Unknown Pleasures in my collection. It's always been a reissue, because original copies were kind of expensive even back when I was a younger person, and have increased in value over the years because it's just one of those albums that people have and people want in their collection. However, I always made this promise with myself, and I do this with a lot of like key albums, and that's if I see it, has to be in person. I don't want to go on Discogs and just buy a copy. That's too easy. If I go into a secondhand record store and I see the record and it's in good shape at a good price, I will entertain bringing it home with me. And that's exactly what happened with this copy of Unknown Pleasures. This is a true blue Tranco first pressing of Unknown Pleasures. I was in a secondhand record store. This was sitting behind the counter, had no price on it, and it didn't have any information about it at all. And so I asked about it, and the guy said to me, oh, this is actually a first pressing of the record. And it's got the fantastic linen cover, which has, I don't know if you can really tell that, but it does have the linen cover. And this has been replicated on various reissues over the years. It's not super unusual to find it with a linen cover, but finding an original with very little ring wear is kind of impossible, because, you know, this album again is, when did this come out? 45 years ago, 46 years ago, something like that. It's not a spring chicken of an album, and it does have its original inner sleeve with the rounded corners. That's another telltale sign of a first pressing. Again, it has been replicated, but you will be able to tell. I mean, this just, oh, that smells. Whoa, geez, getting a little bit higher. It's just, there's something about sniffing. There's something about sniffing a 40-odd-year-old record. I don't know what it is. I'm kind of weird like that. But this record in particular, this is a first pressing. And one of the cool things about the first pressing, and how to spot a first pressing of Unknown Pleasures from the jump, is the vinyl it was pressed on was kind of low grade. So you won't be able to tell this, I do not think. But if you shine it up to the light, of which I am doing now, and I can see it, the record is not black. It's actually like a really, really, really dark red, or almost like a trans brown. The record itself is actually see-through. And that's one of the telltale signs that you only find, I believe, on the first press. So as soon as I kind of slipped it out of its jacket, the first thing I did, I'm standing in the record shop and I'm trying to hold it up to the light, and the light is miles away, and the guy knew what I was doing as well. He was like, oh, it is a first press, but I understand. So I'm like holding it up and I'm looking and I'm kind of weighing it up back and forth. And then the clincher, I was kind of already heading towards it, but the clincher, the guy in the record store said, the original owner of this record, because I am the second owner of this. The guy that sold his record collection to the secondhand record store I go to, he also kept a vinyl diary, which I do as well, and a lot of you out there do. He had only listened to this album twice. Now, some people are not Joy Division fans. That's totally fine, I get it. He'd only listened to the album twice since its release, so once I cleaned it and put it on, the sound was just absolutely unbelievable. And you can see here, like, how nice is that spine? I don't know, it may not kind of focus enough, but this is a record that has literally just sat on a shelf for the better part of 40 odd years, and now finds its way into the record room, where hopefully it will stay for the next 40 odd years. But unlike its original owner, I will be listening to it. I've listened to it a couple of times already. This album means a great deal to me and my wife. I will hopefully be spending this for my daughter, her children, and anyone that wants to listen to Unknown Pleasures and they're in my vicinity. I have a copy that you will want to listen to. But what about you out there? What about you? How do you feel about reissues versus original copies? I understand reissues are very, very cheap compared to originals, at least in most cases. But for me, as much as I love walking into a record store and seeing issues of classic albums, for me, I am definitely leaning towards original pressings these days, and I don't mind waiting. I don't mind saving up my pennies, trading some stuff in if it means I can get what I feel is a superior copy. But what about you? Let me know in the comments down below. Remember, you can follow us online at Record Room Show on Instagram, X, and I almost said X and Twitter, but it's the same thing. And Instagram, Facebook, X/Twitter. Remember, you can leave a comment below, and if you're not already following us, please give us a subscribe. If you think you might enjoy future episodes, make sure you never miss out. And speaking of future episodes, I'm actually going to be on the road in the next couple of weeks. I will be over in the United States for a short period of time, but I may well take my camera with me and film some on-the-road blog type things, because I have planned out to visit a couple of record stores and something interesting as well, which I know guys that watch this channel will probably find useful. So yeah, maybe it is a good idea to subscribe to the Record Room after all. But until next time, spin those blackest circles.